Hello, everyone, and welcome to a possibly chaotic episode of the Winging It F1 podcast, which I think we are all looking forward to doing. It is going to be a news episode. We are going to be covering the engine news that has come out over the past few days, that Red Bull are taking over the Honda engine and have founded Red Bull Powertrain. There's also an engine freeze, which we will be bringing you up to date on, and also Alonso's bicycling accident, which he is now recovering from, which we are all pleased about, and the McLAREN launch, which, I think that'll be an interesting one to go into at the end of the podcast. But first, I am here, as usual, with Freddie Coates and Nigel Tute. How are you both?
Yeah, doing very good. I think, like you say, it's going to be a bit chaotic. I think we're a bit hyper, judging from the preamble Zoom to this podcast, where there was a good half an hour of just chaos.
Yes, whose fault was that? Yeah, I'm doing all right, Adam.
You.
Yeah, had a very interesting week.
Nigel says whose fault was that? And it was his fault.
It was entirely his fault. Before we get into that, we'll just do a quick reminder of where you can listen to us, or other ways you can listen to us and consume our content if you are new to the channel, as I hit the table. So if you are listening to us on Spotify, then you'll know that we are on Spotify if you search Winging It F1. We are also on YouTube. Again, if you search Winging It F1 or Winging It F1 podcast, you'll find us there. I think we're top search result, or maybe that's just on my computer because it knows that I do the podcast. Who knows? And we are on Acast, our podcast provider, which Freddie knows more about than me.
Yes, we have a podcast provider. We have a website through Acast, which is shows.acast/winging it -F1 podcast, something like that. It's in all of our descriptions and everything. Don't worry. If you want to click on our website, go on it there. And you can find our entire back catalogue of episodes. You can listen to them on Acast, and it's got links to all of our Twitters and all of the links that Adam has just brilliantly said.
Yes, and on the subject of Twitter, I am at Adam Dickinson01. Freddie is at FredCoat1999, and Nigel is at Nigel C. Journo, unless he has changed it since I last did this, which is a while back. And we are on Twitter as a podcast at Winging It F1, hopefully. Yes. We will dive straight into the engine news. I think we'll start with the Red Bull news. It came out last year, October, maybe?
September,
November? Okay, September, a bit earlier than I thought, that Honda were going to be stepping away from F1 again. And that left Red Bull in a bit of a pickle, because from next year onwards, they were due not to have an engine, and we didn't know whether they go with one of the existing manufacturers. They've obviously not got the greatest of relationships with Renault or Mercedes or Ferrari, so they decided to go it alone, probably for that reason. Nigel, what more can you tell us about this?
Oh, well, I've got a bit of a cough, but I'm going to try and explain it. So yes, Red Bull have taken over the Honda engines from next year. And I think the big news from it is that there will be an engine freeze, which means that teams will not be able to develop their engines after this time next year, really, from just before winter testing. Red Bull needed this because to take over the engines, if there wasn't an engine freeze, then everyone else would be able to develop, and they wouldn't, because they would just be stuck with a 2021 engine. But now everyone will be on a level playing field, if that makes sense, because Red Bull will have the most up-to-date Honda engine. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So no development after this year, and hopefully with the way science works, the teams will converge with the power units anyway, and it should level up the playing field. But most importantly, it keeps Red Bull in F1, and it'll be interesting to see how it all works when they take over Honda, I guess.
Yeah, I have a feeling there was a lot of push for a freeze from the head honchos from F1, from the FIA for this, because Formula One without Red Bull is not a pretty place. a fifth of the teams are gone. Probably, think about the amount of drivers on the grid now that have come through Red Bull, and you've obviously got
and lost
and lost a lot, but you've obviously had a lot of talent and across the racing fraternity come through Red Bull. So Red Bull have come from a sponsor on the back of a Sauber in 1995 to a fully fledged, entirely works manufacturer in Formula One. And I think this week we've seen a lot of other drinks companies get a little bit annoyed about Red Bull naming no non-premium ex-Haas sponsors because we don't want to name them. And I think this is really, really positive. And I think the engine freeze is what makes it so positive, as Nigel says, because you have had championship winning engines do extra years. So I think in Williams, when they won in 1997, that was the big farewell to the Renault engine that had seen them take basically nearly every constructors championship bar one from 92 to 97. And then they just rebadged it and called it like a Mechachrome for 1998, and it was a year behind. So Williams didn't fight for a championship again really until 2003. And this with Red Bull, with a whole new designed Honda engine for 2021, let's not forget, and that's going to be massive because Honda really, everything coming out of Honda is so positive for this year's engine, and Honda has been one of the best Formula One engines in the past year anyway. So this is going to be one of the four. That's
it's been a top four engine in F1.
If you're any of them, you could well be top three, and that's podium material. So Honda have got a lot lying on this. And the last time a Honda pulled out of something and they were basically saved, Brawn won the championship. So who knows?
Yeah, I think Ferrari, they won't be very pleased at this, surely.
Well, it depends because it will save costs, so it helps everyone in a way. But if Ferrari are still behind this time next year, then they will have a problem. But
Again,
I'm not sure. But there might be a few rules to help whoever's like last in the engine pecking order. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to fully work. I don't think we'll know for a few weeks.
There are a lot of good things coming out of Maranello mid-season last year about the engine development at Ferrari, and sort of around the end of the season, they said they seemed to think they'd made a very good level of progress, and because none of it gelled at Ferrari last year. They had a car that was so draggy because it was designed for a faster engine that then wasn't there, meant that every problem was over exaggerated so much. So they know what they're going into with this year, and they're saying they seem to think they've got a much better engine because they've made it and they know the regulations they're sticking to with it this time. They're not cutting out half the engine like they did for 2020 with oil burning, etc., which we know only so much about. So they're going into 2021 with a whole powertrain built that they know the capabilities of really, and they're going to build the car to that powertrain. So I think Ferrari are going to be probably will feel a bit quietly comfortable that they don't have an engine that's going to throw up any random surprises like it has done in the past year.
That's the point of a surprise, though. It's not. I don't think, this engine's going to be a bad surprise for us. Yeah, I think that there will be a team that's in, or there will potentially be a team that is in, quite a bad position, or several teams, depending on which engine manufacturer it is, that are really on the back foot now for the next few years if they don't get it right. And that's I think that is a potential problem, but it's the lowest of three or two or three evils of either Red Bull pulling out or that, as you say, that really damages the sport. And we wouldn't have been able to talk about Albon for the whole of last year, so that would have damaged this podcast too. So they do have a big place in the sport, and I'm glad that they are able to continue.
But then every capability of every engine is known for a good 3 years, and there's not going to be the different. Like if you're Mercedes and your engine's at a certain level, you'll always be building a car to that level And if you're Alpine and your engine's a little bit slower, you'll always be going down a philosophy of a slightly less draggy, slightly slipperier car. And so by the time you get to the end of those development cycles, all of the aerodynamics will have sort of worked in a way that will negate any of the differences between the engines anyway, because they'll have developed their cars in such a way that they'll be getting the maximum out of it with that particular engine, and they know exactly what's coming from that engine. I think everyone has been talking about their 2021 power unit in completely random ways. Mercedes came out the other day and said they've got issues with it, which they always say. So that means they're going to be on pole by 50 seconds. And I've already said, Honda and Ferrari are confident. I don't really know what Alpine think about their engine, but they've got no customers now, so they're probably the one who are in the worst boat, I'd say.
I think that is the one big worry. If Mercedes, for whatever reason, have a substantial advantage at the end of this year in terms of their engine, then it could be a bit of a problem. But I think the hope is that it will be like the V8 engine era when there was an engine freeze then, and all of the engine manufacturers are pretty close to each other, and it was a lot better then, arguably F1. So I think the hope is that it's something like that.
Yeah, and you still had characteristics between the engines then. The Mercedes was still a touch faster. The Renault was at that time a touch slower, but the Renault was the Renault powered Red Bull was the car that won 4 championships on the trot. So it's kind of like it's still about the car more than the powertrain.
Yeah, I think there's a phrase which is probably out there, but if not, then I've made it up. That an engine freeze is only as good as its engines, and we'll have to see over this season how that plays out. Who do you think had the strongest engine out of Mercedes and Renault last season?
Mercedes.
Yeah, Mercedes had the best engine in the whole field.
Renault had a car that responded very, very nicely to a very low drag setup.
I think in my memory, I drastically overestimated the Renault.
I think, you look at the Renault where the Renault was really good, and someone like Spa and someone like Monza.
Honda was arguably better than Renault. Never mind Mercedes.
All right, Nigel, let me take him seriously. So the Renault performance was going really well at high-speed tracks, and that was because more so that the Renault team took a step with just trying out a random low-drag setup, and it worked really nicely with their car. And if you look at the Constructors' Championship standings, by the time you got to sort of round 3 or 4, Racing Point and McLaren were in their kind of usual position of best of the rest, and Renault was in a bit of a no man's land between themselves and Ferrari and AlphaTauri, and Renault sort of had a bit of an unlock at, I think, Silverstone 2, or one of the Silverstones, and Ricciardo was then up into 4th place or something, and from then on, Ricciardo was there, and that's because they really managed to perfect a different type of setup for the car. So I think that sort of leads into the point that I was saying earlier about with them always knowing the capability of the engine, the car will then be built to that engine in even more of a successful way with the engine freeze, if I'm making any sense.
It makes sense, but I thought Renault's straight line speed of gains were down to aerodynamics more than anything, than the engine.
Well, that's what I said. They
it was. Yeah. Yes.
I celebrated the engine freeze discussion by freezing on the Zoom call, so that's going very well. We're all in sync with the internet. Yeah, I tried to keep as still as I could, even though it doesn't make a difference. I mean, if your video is going to freeze, that's the time you should move around a lot because no one can see you. But there we go. Such is the age that we are living in. So, final thoughts. Will this engine freeze be a good thing for F1?
Yes. Keeps Red Bull in the sport.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I mean, there's obviously the caveats of every engine could be blowing up like hell this year, but if they're not, if it's as it's been for the 6 of the 7 V6 turbo hybrid era years, where the engines are like 2017, where the engines were kind of normal with each other, then why not? It'll be fine.
Well, I mean, I don't want to talk about years from the past, but Mercedes have always had an advantage in every year, apart from 2019, haven't they?
So we're just freezing the advantage, aren't we? It's the same thing. They would have had an advantage if they built a new power unit. So may as well just freeze the advantage. That, if you think about it like that, it's kind of like it's fair enough, because if you're going to keep making the same marginal gains, then everyone's going to keep at the same rate feasibly, because Mercedes
Won't everyone converge eventually?
Not if there's so many complicated reasons going into this power unit. Most expensive power unit of all time, the most complicated power unit of all time. There's so much going into this that convergence is going to take 20 years. And the more we look at it, Ferrari just had a shocker, and they keep having to redesign these engines. Ferrari redesigning it, Honda redesigning it, as I've said. So the convergence is a long way away. And if with a sustainable engine really being what's important to Formula One now, what's important to the world now, frankly, this engine can't afford, and with money existing, with this not being free, this engine can't afford to wait for convergence.
Yeah, good point. I think most importantly, well, obviously, I think the sports first, but for Red Bull, it kind of keeps Verstappen not certain for next year with them, but it definitely helps that he stays with the team for next year, that he might not move to Mercedes, because if they didn't have this deal done, early, then I think Verstappen, there would have been a high chance of him leaving, which still could happen, but it definitely helps Red Bull in that when they have to negotiate.
It gives Red Bull 4 years of negotiation to find, Audi or VW to power them for 2026 and onwards, frankly. And I think that's what's needed. Red Bull either need to get a sponsor, like a high-class sponsor for their Red Bull powertrains, because they had the Tag Heuer branded Renault. If they can get essentially a BMW branded, say, for example, this powertrain can be branded as BMW, for instance, and then they can have them full-on BMW partnership for the next powertrain. They can build up a relationship with another engine manufacturer, and they've got time to do that, and they've got the confidence to do that, because they don't have to have this relationship like they did with Renault, where they were biting each other's hands off every other day, and don't have they basically know what they're doing with a bit of stability. I think that's good, and it's positive for the future in the 2025-26, whenever it comes out, more sustainable, louder, cheaper engine that they're hopefully going to be able to get
every year.
But they say it every year.
This year. Well, this year is the one. I do like the image Freddie conjured up at the start of answering this question about the engines exploding everywhere, and I'm just kind of picturing a Kingsman style, like just kind of going around the grid, like they all, like 3 cars like exploded flag or something, and like keep going like that. I think that'd be a superb thing. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It is a worry that if Mercedes do kind of go in with a massive advantage, they will be, even with the rule change coming in 2022, they won't be, things might not be as close as we hope they will be. But yeah, I think that you've both raised very good points on that. Anything else to add on that, or?
Nothing from me, Adam. You may move on to the next topic.
That is superb. It's like being in a 10 Downing Street briefing, except not in any way at all, apart from that sentence.
Next slide.
Alonso was involved in was it in Switzerland? Bike incident in Switzerland, and was hospitalised, and he fractured his jaw, which sounds quite a nasty injury and quite a nasty fall if the kind of main impact point or main kind of force trauma on his body was on the jaw. That sounds quite a nasty incident. But he is out now. Fortunately, he is. I think on Monday or Sunday they said he'd be having a few days complete rest, and then he'd be able to resume training. But it will have some impact on his season. His starts the season. Is there a helmet? Does he have to wear a special?
Yeah, well, it's just rumours at the moment, nothing official. But he might have to wear a special kind of helmet because of whatever surgery he's had to his face or his teeth, which will have to be approved by the FIA. But we'll have to see. It's just rumours so far. But hopefully, I hope it doesn't affect him too much.
It won't make too much difference realistically in terms of the helmet homologation, because I mean, Arai and Stilo and all these Bell, all these companies, whoever provides helmets to Alonso will make it happen because it's Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, it's just will it affect his performance? I guess because of this accident. I mean,
I think if it had been a severe incident to sort of, I don't know, his whole leg or his arm, that kind of thing, something that would severely impact the way he drives the car and the way he sits in the car, maybe. But I kind of feel like the most positive thing about it being in the jaw, which, as Adam says, is a horrible crash to imagine. You can kind of, the tarmac on your face is not nice. Asphalt. And it's just like, at least it's not what he drives the car with.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it happened near a Lidl apparently. So it was a traffic jam of cars. The car stopped and the car turned. The car was blind, so it didn't see him, and then it hit him at the junction or something.
I think that's a positive as well, is that it hits him at a junction. If he had been hit by, I mean, that's one of those things that sometimes you just can't avoid as a car or a cyclist, which is just awful. But if it hit him sort of on a dual carriageway, then he would be a goner, frankly, and he's just basically being pushed over by a car, not being hit by a car. And I think that's kind of some comfort you can take in it, but it's still, and any instant when you're doing training, when you're hit by a car in any way, is horrible.
Yeah, definitely. Mark Webber had a mountain bike accident back in the day, didn't he? That affected his.
He broke his leg and then won his first race of the season that year. So I think if we're talking about big impacts to Alonso, I don't think there's really going to be many.
Maybe positive, maybe a win.
I mean, Alonso's had huge accidents, in F1 in 2015 pre-season testing. He had a weird incident, and then he missed the first race, but then he was fine. After that, in 2016 in Melbourne, he flipped over after hitting Esteban Gutierrez, but he's come back from that. And for me, I really do think he'll still be near his best and one of the top drivers in the sport. It's good that he's recovering, and hopefully we'll see him well at pre-season testing, which is not too far away now.
There's something about Fernando, isn't there? He's just relentless, and you kind of think this is just gonna spur him on to be like, I've got to train even harder every day now. Every day that I can train counts. Every day that I can get out on the bike is so much more important. And I think it's. I was really gutted by the news, actually, because I was really worried that we wouldn't be able to see a return for one of the most naturally gifted racers in Formula One, or definitely of the past, however long, 70 years.
Hey, yeah. A month away.
Definitely the latest Formula One.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you know that Alonso had a close call in 2009 when he was taking off from a plane in Kenya, and the pilot lost control because the wing hit a building, but he escaped from that. He was just a bit shocked, and then he went home on a private plane a few days later, which was sent by Flavio Briatore, who was then the Renault boss.
Yeah,
I think he was.
Yeah,
it was one of his final seasons in F1. So we had a close call then in before the season. So
that's scary. David Coulthard had a plane crash as well when he was a Formula One driver. I think it was his private. I think it was a chartered plane for him and his wife or something to fly from the UK to Monaco or Nice, wherever it is, and it crashed on landing. And it's horrible crash. I think that's one of those things that DC still speaks about as like haunting him.
Was that Jordan's?
We've gone down.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Adam?
Was that Jordan when he was still racing in F1?
That was when he was racing. I think that was I want to say McLAREN days, but obviously successful enough to charter a flight. But
Wow.
yeah, it's there's a lot of, if you're traveling for a living, it becomes a bit unsavory sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
On a cheerier note,
when you're strapping yourself into an F1 car, then I think things probably pale into insignificance really a bit. So yeah,
if you're willing to go around the outside of 130R on Michael Schumacher, who's one of the most defensive drivers of all time, then I think he's not scared.
Yeah. And Mark Webber also finished the final 4 races of the 2010 season nursing a broken shoulder.
In the championship, arguably.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But my better scared of flying fact is that in the 2011 Rugby World Cup, Romanian star player and fullback Catalan Furcu didn't travel because he was scared of flying. So he didn't play. He was their best player and he didn't play. Yeah. And then in the 2015 World Cup, then he got the boat. He got the boat to England. Wow. That's how he travelled. So yeah. What do you
want to be when you're older? I want to be an international rugby player. How are you going to do that? By not flying anywhere.
By train. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think that's I just can't kind of imagine it. And
imagine an F1 driver like
that. Well, you could just compete on kind of the European leg. Or like you'd have
that would be interesting though. If you had like drivers who just did like random bits of the season just because they wanted to, that kind of thing. If you had that kind of level of capability for drivers in F1, that would be kind of fun. Didn't Red Bull have like in their first season just have Christian Klein and Liuzzi, if it's Antonio Liuzzi, just like take it in turns every other week?
I remember.
I don't know. Can't remember.
I think that's one of those weird things that Red Bull do. It's like, let's have 3 drivers. Why not?
They did have 3 drivers at some point. Yeah, that is right. I can't remember what it was.
Well, you could have. I think this season you could probably you could have 2 weeks to get from Bahrain to Imola. Actually, this season would be all right for it because
good luck doing the triple header from Singapore, Japan to wherever the other one is.
Yeah, when you have to get that boat from Brazil to Australia.
Yeah, I think in that case you'd just have to go straight to Jeddah and just skip out Australia.
Yeah.
Then you go to Jeddah and do Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and you can just go the other way from Brazil, can't you? You can go like left instead of right.
You go all the way across the land of South America, get to Chile.
I can't even have to say left. Anti-clockwise, that's a better phrase.
West. Let's say west. Like like traveling. Let's say west. So actually, when you get to Interlagos, turn left and go to Chile. Then when you get to Chile, keep going straight across the Pacific Ocean until you get to Melbourne. Then when you get to Melbourne, turn right and you might be at Albert Park. Who knows?
Oh, Sir Francis, which way what's our heading? Left a bit and then straight on past that sandbar. Like, I'm not sure. That's the official nautical term. But anyway, well, you could have quite a fun.
You could say port.
It'd be a bit like the Top Gear, like Middle Eastern special, kind of trying to get from Bahrain to Imola in 2 weeks.
In the most legal way possible.
Sneak through the desert.
Yeah, you just got like Joe Venazzi or whatever just sneaking through Syria.
I can imagine Joe Venazzi being terrified of planes, actually. I don't know why. He's so sweet and lovely. You can kind of think, I don't like to fly. It's just like, oh, bless him.
Apologies to any Italian viewers.
That was an amazing accent. Actually, you should be thanking me, Italian viewers.
Yeah, I'm
so sorry. I'm so sorry.
But that is one that kind of, journalists that kind of I follow on socials, I see them, the kind of like in mid-European legs of the season where, you've got like Paul Ricard, Austria, Britain or something like that. And you do see kind of some of those, if you got those triple headers, I would think that'd be quite a nice road trip to do.
Yeah. I think I think it's Simon Patterson is his name. He's a MotoGP journalist. He just lives in a van and drives from track to track, which looks like, kind of like, that's quite a cool, fun thing to do.
Yeah.
That's what the teams do, isn't it? I mean, how do the teams ship everything? So to be fair, they could just put a driver in a container and ship it.
It's like the Stig. That's something Top Gear would do. They just like wheel the Stig out, and like in the
and the Stig's
race
the best
across
driver.
London.
Yeah,
The race across London where they just like and take the bubble wrap off him, or is that the Spanish one? Can't remember. One of the two.
They post him in the Spanish one. They just put a stamp on the Stig, don't they?
On the Stig's head. But then the Queen's head is on the stamp, so it's the Queen's head on the Stig's head.
And that's why the Queen wins every Formula One race.
Yes.
Yes.
No. She's the fastest round the Top Gear test track.
The Queen.
Yeah. She holds the lap record there.
Doesn't she have to hold the lap record? Isn't it part of the law?
Famously, the Stig doesn't compete in F1, so he doesn't.
And that's why
that'd be fun though. Imagine
that'd be great. Well,
they don't know who it is. They just like rock up, and he's just there walking in his helmet.
So Top Gear did the 24-hour Brit car race for one of their episodes in like years ago. They genuinely considered entering Le Mans with the Stig and just having the Stig.
Oh wow!
I know, but then they also realised that it's a proper event, so they can't just enter someone called the Stig. And what if he loses? That's not good. So, which kind of makes sense. But would it be insane if they'd entered? I don't know, Perry McCarthy. When he was the Stig, it was 20 years on from when he had one F1 drive. So, who knows?
His book on my bookshelf. Still need to read it.
He was the Stig. What?
Was he like one of the original Stigs? Was he?
Oh, I thought
he was
Ben Collins after that.
Ben Collins after that, and then we don't know the third.
No, I like that when Ben Collins terms it for the it's the amputees who are doing the Dakar Rally. And he turns up and he's like, Hammond's like, oh yeah, if you see him noting anything, if he gets a notebook out, don't say anything. He's like, it's ex-Stig and like touring car driver Ben Collins or whatever.
When they did their arena tour after that, and in between they didn't have a Stig and they had to do all their like stuff with the Stig, and they just said like, we've got the Ben Collins, and just called him the Ben Collins, which I thought was quite fun. Anyway, this is off topic,
but it's winging it, so it works. And now we will drag it back onto topic with the final piece of news to come out today: that McLaren car launch, team launch, livery launch. It's the exact same as last year in terms of the livery, but I like it. I think the car looks very sleek as well. I do genuinely like the car design, which shows how much I've developed over the last year, because this time last year I wouldn't have known about the car design at all. So there we go. But yeah, what do you both make of the event? And yeah, event.
Oh, the event. Okay, the event. Yeah, the whole
anything McLaren-y, to be honest.
Anything McLaren-y.
Add that to the dictionary, kids. Why did I say kids? Well, anyway.
If a kid is watching it, they're going to go and add it to the dictionary because they're a kid. But yeah,
in their A-level English exam and fail.
Exactly. I wonder what it is in French. Anyway, the event was long. It was they definitely wanted to get their point across with the fact that they exist. I don't really know. I never really know why car launches, team launches are sometimes long exercises, but I guess it's an excuse for PR, isn't it? It's coverage. It's creating news for yourself, and they did that. They got people talking. They had a good bit of fun with a fun little VT where Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris went to go and create a song that we didn't hear. You kind of thought they were going to do a live performance of it, and I thought that would be kind of interesting if they did a live performance of it, but they didn't. Maybe we'll hear snippets of this song across the year, and we'll all be pissed off with it by the time we get to race 6. But anyway, I thought it was all right. Some people think it's a bit cringe, but I think because it's Lando and Daniel, it was fine. And I agree with Adam. It's a nice car. If it ain't broke, it's what Renault did for so many years recently with their car, and that was always a good looking car, the yellow and black Renault. And that probably, if they weren't changing to Alpine, would have stayed the same again. It's that kind of thing. Nice car. They've refined it a bit. They've made it slicker because last year the rainbow bit was just added on halfway through. Whereas this, they've made it a bit slicker. Looks a few little edges, a few little bits of blue where it was just kind of like with a blue trim in some places, which I think is quite nice. Why are you laughing at me?
God, we are struggling out. We're talking about the little bits of.
That's the thing. That's all there is to say. That's all there is to say. But it does make it look better. It's like
I'm just impressed that you actually managed to find something different on it. I was genuinely looking at it.
They filmed the nose cone straight away, and the nose cone had a dash of blue on it. It didn't have that dash of blue on it last year.
Well, sorry.
What?
I mean,
sorry, we didn't notice.
We're promoting ourselves as F1 journalists. We should know this kind of thing.
Yeah, we're not art critics.
About the racing.
No, but you've got to be an art critic when you're looking at a livery, aren't you?
Sorry, Michelangelo.
We can tell this version
Michelangelo.
of
The art critic, Michelangelo.
Is he an artist?
He's an artist. He painted the Sistine Chapel. Maybe I am an art critic. Maybe that's my calling.
Oh yes, this version.
You should chop your ear off as well.
Chop my ear off. I'm going to get a Jackson Pollock-esque thing on.
The cow's head to the left is slightly rounder from the horns, then going down to the nose, and that is how we know that it is the number 57.
Allegorical for Judas Iscariot.
Picasso painted. That's Freddie. I've actually seen Guernica. It's very big, but sorry.
Massive.
Yes.
Well, anyway, the McLaren isn't by Picasso.
No, I wish it was actually. It'd be very good.
It would be amazing if McLaren had resuscitated and brought back from the dead Pablo Picasso. That would be
right there.
That would arguably be a bigger story than the car launch.
Oh my God.
Definitely a bigger story than a new McLaren anthem building
Yeah.
Pro recording studios.
Ooh,
Yeah, I mean, it's PR, isn't it? It's all PR, and it worked because a lot of people watched it. Impressive.
That's the song. I just did the song.
Nigel, if you've got anything to...
Have I got anything to add? I think the question was. Yeah. I mean, nothing to do with the colours, but they talked about how they made changes to the rear of the car because every team has to with the new regulations. Mercedes engine in the back of the car as well. But yeah, I'm really excited about McLaren's chances this year, and I think Daniel Ricciardo and McLaren's a great fit. I think it's a really good matchup. So yeah, I really do rate their chances for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think I did really like that bit with James Key and the two drivers discussing the car. But as you've raised that, we'll just go on to a quick bit at the end. Have we got any hot takes for McLaren's season, or what would be a good year for McLaren?
I thought you were going to say, what would be a good hot take if you don't have a hot take? I was just like, how does that work? I don't know why I thought you were going to say that.
I understand English.
I'm stalling because
I think they're going to get, the aim should be third, and I think they will achieve that. And I hope to get closer to Mercedes and Red Bull too. That's what Zach Brown and Andreas Seidel has spoken about, that they want to close the gap to what, at least within a second consistently at every race, I'd think, if not a bit closer to the pole position time, whatever that is. And I think they will do that. I think McLaren will get third, and I think they will get a few podiums this year as well.
I think they're going to get a pole position.
I mean,
it's possible.
It's a hot take. I'm trying to be a hot take. If you're saying,
it is strong. I
say they
like
could finish third. That's just a take. This is a hot take.
They will finish third.
I do
what?
like that.
That's what you just said.
I really like that as a hot take, actually.
Thank you.
That's very good.
In the wet qualifying or?
If the other 18 cars crash?
If we start to add in variables, it becomes way too hot a take.
Because if it's dry,
just a pole position. Let's start it as a pole position. Let's say
pole position.
It could be wet. It could be dry. Who knows?
That hot enough for you, Nigel? Mr. They're going to come third.
Either way, they'll start first on the grid for one of the races. They might qualify second, and someone might get pushed back. Who knows? Still starting on pole position.
I can see that. I mean, I think they got more chance of winning a race than getting pole position, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, same with everyone, really. That's what Pierre Gasly won a race.
Agree. Apart from Lewis and Bottas, especially Bottas.
I got more chance of getting a pole. Bottas got more chance of getting a pole than winning. That's so true, actually.
Yeah, I think they won't get a podium.
Ooh,
No,
it's actually kind of a hot take. Do you think?
Really?
It's a negative hot take. Well, I don't know. I've got to think of something.
Well, it's a Sub-Zero take. It's a very cold take.
I think
Perez.
Perez. I think the Perez factor.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's
Like-
one driver.
Yeah, but
like you say, it's just one driver who's Albon who's not getting any points in the Red Bull.
yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
23 races.
but they only got 2 podiums last year. I don't know. I just think if you take away
And they were
that,
by mitigated circumstances because of Austria 1 being crazy and Italy. Actually, they were on target for a podium in Sakir anyway before craziness there, and in Monza before craziness there. So they had the pace then.
yeah, I just think.
And Nürburgring.
I mean, I don't know exactly how many pole positions were, not pole position, podiums were taken by drivers that weren't in a Mercedes or a Red Bull, but I think Perez will take away a lot of those. I don't know, eight's a shot in the dark, but it kind of feels right.
Well, yeah, I mean, Albon got 2 podiums for Red Bull, so if Perez can get more than 2, then it's that you are arguing that case. Well, more than 2 in 17 races.
Yeah. So and then it just kind of comes down to a bit of luck of the draw as to kind of who's in the position to capitalise when that, when one of the top or 2 of the top 4 aren't there, and if that is a wet race or whatever, which is more likely to be, I think then
that's true.
It's even more luck of the draw. Well, that's my hot take.
Whoever's the 3rd fastest team, which I believe will be McLaren, will have a very good chance of being on the podium. But do you think if you look back in every single season, whoever the 3rd fastest team is, or whoever finished 3rd in the constructors, they will have taken a podium at some point.
But the question,
Adam
raised there,
doesn't think they'll be 3rd. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. The thing you raised there, Nigel, is that you believe in a certain thing, but does that mean that Adam believes in a certain thing?
That's a good point. It's called an opinion.
Yeah, it's not science yet until we've got to the whole end of the season. Then it could be science.
I'm just having a quick look back through a few seasons. 2018, McLaren were 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, and they got a podium. No, sorry,
Mercedes,
4th.
Ferrari, Red Bull.
Yeah, no, I'm chatting.
2020 they were 3rd.
Yeah.
2020 was the best.
2018 they were 8th or something, weren't they, or 7th?
Yeah, but I think the key thing is that it's not. Previously, the 3rd best team has been one of the top 3 teams. You'd have a kind of group of the top 3. You'd have a group of the top 3 fastest.
Previously the 3rd place team has been one of the top 3 teams.
Yeah, I just mean like, I know you both know what I mean. But if you're kind of grouping it, it's like
the
you have these 3
teams. Yeah.
Well, it's like these 3 were the fastest, the top group of fastest teams. So I think, and this year it's just the other 2. I don't know. That's my hot take, and it's hotter than yours, Nigel. So
Class A is smaller than it used to be. That's what you're saying. Yeah. If that makes sense. He's frozen, but what he is saying is that Class A is bigger. Is used to be 3 teams and now is 2 teams, and that's why.
Yeah,
so, and if you're looking this year,
if you're looking at the 4th, the kind of team below Class A, then it's not been kind of as successful over the past few years. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Anything else to add, gents, on it? We will be doing a season preview proper, and it will be a lot better than last year's season preview as well, because we have developed over the year.
And if you've watched this podcast, you've noticed how much better we are than how we used to be.
We will get over McLaren then as well. But anything to add?
I think what I will add is that everything coming out, we say this a lot, but everything coming out of McLaren is so positive, and it's still so positive. And the fact that this team was, openly taking like making a collaboration with a music group, and they've got a driver writing a rap in a recording booth, and they're laughing about it and putting it on front and center of one of their biggest PR events of the year, standalone events. That speaks volumes to where McLaren is as an organization. And if you look at where they were 10 years ago, if someone had even thought about this, they would have been shot at dawn. Whereas now they've actually done it, and they've developed it, and they've become a team that's so personable and so fantastic and such a fan-friendly team that it's the template for what Liberty want from Formula One teams and what they wanted to instigate when they bought Formula One in 2016. So I'd just say other teams take note. I mean, I know it was a bit long. I know it went on for 40 minutes, but that's because they can do that. And a lot of a lot of the filler they used was actually relatively interesting. So, and they focus on the car. They, like Adam says, they had a video with James Key talking about the car, and that was really interesting. So other teams take note and don't be aloof, be McLaren.
That's a nice way to put it. Like I said, I'm really excited about McLaren, and I think this is probably the most excited I've been about them since probably the first year of the turbo hybrid era, 2014.
Yeah.
Started the season off second best team, and then just went down. Well, it's been downhill ever since then, since they had the couple podiums, but they really have rejuvenated in the last couple of years. Norris and Sainz last year, we've spoken about the environment in the team and how it's changed, how it's improved. Zach Brown has as well too. And they've got the right people there. James Key used to be at Toro Rosso, Andrea Seidel, who we know about from the Porsche LMP1 team. So it's all looking good. It really is. And I can't wait to see what happens on the track.
Yes.
A pole position. That's what's going to happen.
But no podiums, which brings us to the end of this podcast. So thank you very much for listening. We will be back in a week or two, depending on what happens in the F1 world, with another hit of news and debate.
There'll be a few other car launches as well. Coming up later this week. We've got Alfa Romeo is coming in a week. Someone else is coming later. I think Alpha Tauri is coming on Thursday. So we're going to be swept off our feet with many little conversations about cars that look exactly the same.
Yes.
Apart from Alpine and Aston Martin.
The audience, can all look forward to that with bated breath. But for now, we will say thanks for listening and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.